Thank you for tuning in again to Cruising on Empty. I'm your host, Sold. Sorry for the background. I'm actually getting over pneumonia. So, we will be talking about today is the H1 Humvee, also known as the H1 Hummer or the H1 Alpha. So, without further ado, let's get into it. For me to start talking about the H1 Hummer, we will have to retrace our steps back to the beginning. The U.S. military was looking for a vehicle that can go from point A to point B. A small vehicle company by the name of Bantam picked up that torch and made the Bantam Jeep for the U.S. military in 1940. In 1941, Ford beat out Bantam Jeep, being able to make a Jeep for the U.S. military at a cheaper price. That Jeep was called the GPW Jeep. Then in 1949, the M38 Willys MC Jeep replaced the GPW Jeep from 1949 to 1952. Then that was replaced by the M38A1 Willys MD Jeep from 1952 to 1971. Then the Ford M151 Jeep and M151A2 Jeep ran from 1960 to 1982. Until the Humvee replaced the Jeep. So the Jeep simply could not keep up with the high technology requirements of the modern military, considering two Jeeps were equal to one Humvee carrying a trailer full of anti-tank missiles. When the Humvee was introduced to the military in 1985, there were many different variations of the Humvee. Some of them were the ambulance truck, a rocket launcher truck, communications truck, and even a satellite truck. Of course, why not, right? And also a missile launcher truck, just to name a few. With the many different variations of the Humvee, the U.S. military was itching to try it out. They first got their chance to try it out with the invasion of Panama in 1989. Unfortunately, this war was short-lived since it only lasted until 1990. Also in 1990, the Gulf War happened. After the Gulf War, the American military was able to experience the Humvee in many other wars afterwards. Unfortunately, warfare was changing, and with the change of warfare, the Humvee needed to adapt to the changing, or the evolution, I should say, of warfare. Unfortunately, it was not able to cope since a lot of countries were using IEDs. The IEDs made the Humvees extremely vulnerable in warfare. So the answer to this, AM General decided to make a few Humvees armored. Unfortunately, with all the efforts that AM General put into making the Humvee adapt to the changes of warfare, unfortunately, their efforts were useless because the Humvee was still vulnerable to IEDs. So unfortunately, like the Humvee's cousin, the Jeep, it just could not keep up with the high technology requirements of the modern military. Unfortunately, warfare was changing, and the Humvee was not changing fast enough to protect the soldiers. I think if AM General was actually thinking, they would have done more to change the Humvee, because the regular Humvee without the armor was between 5,200 to 5,900 pounds. The armored version Humvee was 7,700 pounds to 500 pounds, which was a difference in weight between 2,500 to 2,600. So when you really think about it, they didn't do much, considering they still kept the same 6.5 V8 diesel motor in it, which was only making 180 to 215 horsepower and 360 to 540 torque, which was pathetic for an armored Humvee with that much weight. Also, the regular Humvees were $265,295 the U.S. military bought them for, and the armored Humvees were $220,000. Wait a minute. Hold on. What? And that's all they did for the Humvee? Are you kidding me? So on that bombshell, with all the achievements the Humvee has done, unfortunately, it just kept falling short, and it just wasn't measuring up. So the military decided to replace it with the JLTV and the MRAP, which replaced the Humvee in 2006 and 2007. So the list of people who owned an H1 Humvee when it was released to the public was Arnold Schwarzenegger. He owned the first civilian Hummer H1 in 1992 before it was released to the public. Of course, the Terminator, I'll be back. And then Mike Tyson owned his own H1 Hummer, Mr. I'll knock you out in a 1-2 punch. And then Tupac owned an H1 Hummer. And then Dennis Rodman owned an H1 Hummer, who also played for the Chicago Bulls. But what I'm trying, or I should say what I'm having a hard time understanding is why he would paint his truck covered with naked women. I don't understand that, but I don't know. Maybe that's just Dennis Rodman. Moving on. So, moving right along, in 1992, AM General started selling the H1 Hummer to the public out of their factory, and then signed up about 50 or so dealerships to help with marketing and sales of the H1 Hummer. Until 1998, when they sold everything to do with the Humvee to GMC, who owned it for about 67 years. And it was on sale for about 12 to 13 years until GMC decided to stop the sale of the H1 Hummer in 2006. Sorry, GMC, I just can't let you guys off the hook that easy. Sorry. From 1992 to 1996, only, and let me repeat that, only 11,818 H1 Hummers were sold. So that's about 12 to 13 years. You only sold about 11,000? I mean, come on, dude. That's terrible. That's awful. Okay? So, I mean, the Hummer's only real competitor, really, at that time, was the Toyota Land Cruiser. Toyota Land Cruiser and the Range Rover, which was made by Land Rover. That was the really only real, I consider, competitor. Okay? And in 2005, the Range Rover was sold 13,430 trucks in 2005. And in 2004, there was only 252 H1 Hummers sold. And in 2006, there was only 729 H1 Hummers sold. I mean, that's terrible. Terrible, 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 terrible. In 1 year, Land Rover blew GMC away in the sales for the Range Rover. I won't even get into the Toyota Land Cruiser because we know that is that's probably double or triple. So we won't even touch that. But considering GMC had designers, they had marketing team, they had engineers, and you're telling me that's all they could have mustered in all them years? It's bad. It's sad. I mean, they should have put those people in special ed, or they should have fired them, because that is just sad. Okay? I mean, I always say that You have to see the potential, or you will never see what it can be. And unfortunately, they didn't see what it could be, because it could have been so much more. I know I have a lot of questions concerning this video. I welcome all questions that anybody may have. And I want to thank you guys for spending your time with me today in this review for the Humvee and H1 Hummer. And please like, share, subscribe, and I'll see you guys when I see you. Peace.